HumanX Ventures presents Inside the Coaching Mind. Terry Pettit coached University of Nebraska's first national championship team in 1995 and put the state of Nebraska on a path to volleyball greatness. Now, Terry mentors coaches, writes books, and gives talks about leadership and team building to corporate and business audiences. Here's Coach Pettit to take us inside the coaching mind.
Thank you, David Young, and thank you, HumanX Ventures, an organization that recruits, develops, and mentors extraordinary coaches. We have two extraordinary people here today that I have watched play for the last 4 years. Kendra Waite and Norah Sis came in as freshmen and earned starting positions right away. And they have had a rare thing in college athletics today. They've stayed in the same program. The program has had great success. It's gotten better every year. And they're now rookies in the PVF, the Professional Volleyball Federation. Kendra's in Omaha and Norah's in Orlando. And ladies, it's wonderful to have you here. Welcome to Inside the Coaching Mind.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
I want to begin when you were seniors in high school. You both had some relationship with the University of Kansas. And Norah, I don't think I realized this till I read your biography, but your mother played for Kansas. What year did she play? What position? What was her maiden name?
Oh gosh, I don't know what year she played. Her maiden name is Walt, W-A-L-T, and she was an outside. And yeah, I kind of just grew up with her, like wanting. We always were like peppering in the backyard or like throwing the ball against the house, or even I remember like sitting in the basement playing with the ball, and the ceiling is like so low, so we would like pepper on our knees to like try to keep it below from hitting the ceiling. But yeah, I just grew up around it, and yeah, she's been such an incredible role model in my life. So yeah.
And was Kansas ever involved in the recruiting process with you?
I went to a few camps like really, really early on in my recruiting process. And honestly, like at that age, I honestly would attribute, like I was so overwhelmed with everything that recruiting starts so early these days. So I don't think I was like quite in the right headspace to like really soak it all up and like enjoy it. So after that, Kansas wasn't like at the top of my list. Just honestly, I would say for those reasons, I just like I didn't know what I wanted and everything was so overwhelming. So, but I'm so happy that like a bunch of my people in my family go to KU. We have so many ties all over. It is still a very special place in our family.
Yeah, well, we had Ray Bouchard on. As you know, Coach Bouchard retired a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful person, wonderful coach. Kendra, your sister played at Kansas. I believe her senior might have been 2017. They went to the Final Four. And Coach Bouchard said she was the critical reason they got to the Final Four. Cassie Waite. So I'm guessing.
I don't know if Cassie would say that, but she, she loved it there. She loved Coach Bouchard. We have family ties, and so he was just so awesome and such a great coach, and had such a great career there. And I'm just really excited to see him retire and just like getting to enjoy life, because I know he put so much time and energy into that program and kind of creating what it is today. So I'm really excited for him.
So what in the recruiting process for both of you, who did it come down to? Were you all in on Creighton early, or, were there a couple schools that you were looking at? Kendra?
Yeah, I was down pretty much. My last two were between KU and Creighton. I would say, again, it was at that time, it was really, I was going back and forth day by day, but just felt like the opportunities at Creighton, mostly with the nursing program and kind of being able to do both, played a major factor in my decision. And along with just, I kind of like the smaller feel of Creighton. It's not quite a big school like KU is. And so I felt like that kind of fit my personality better at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. And Norah, somebody had told me that Nebraska looked at you as a libero. Is that correct?
I don't think so. If
Maybe,
they were
maybe,
interested, I never knew.
maybe they decided after they saw what a wonderful career you had that they started spreading that rumor that they didn't miss out on this wonderful player. So it was Creighton and who else?
Indiana was the other big one that I was kind of deciding between. But yeah, I just remember, I mean, Creighton wasn't really on my radar. I've said this multiple times, but I didn't want to stay close to home. At least that's what I thought. But then I went on a visit and just totally fell in love with it, and all of the players and coaches and just staff all around. Honestly, nursing wasn't, I totally didn't realize how lucky I was. Like, I didn't know that it was so rare to be able to do nursing and volleyball at the same time. So that is something that, like, looking back, I'm like, wow, that is crazy that worked out, because I had no idea that it was so rare. So that was also a huge blessing. But yeah, I would say just the people really sold me on Creighton.
Did you make a visit to Indiana?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, it was
pretty
a
beautiful.
hectic summer.
Yeah, it's a beautiful campus. Bloomington
Really
is a
pretty, yeah.
pretty special area. But we're glad both of you came to Creighton. This past year, I think you had 33 wins, 3 losses. All 3 losses were in 5 sets to ranked teams, but beating ranked teams is nothing new. I was looking through here, had several wins against USC in the last several years, against Kentucky, against Illinois, against, so this is nothing new of certainly any team in what we traditionally think of as a mid-major. Creighton is at the top of the heap, and I also, I'm biased, but you have a tremendous head coach, a tremendous coaching staff. Angie Oxley was someone I recruited from Ogallala, Nebraska, and your other assistant, or one of your other assistants, was National Assistant Coach of the Year this year. Did you know that?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's an award that Angie also won, I think, earlier in her career. How difficult, and I'm asking 2 people that started right away, but how difficult was the transition from high school to college ball, and what part was the hardest?
I would say, I think a lot of people will say this, but definitely just like balancing everything. I think that, like, I don't know, I think that no matter what major you're in, no matter what other things you have going on in life, like doing anything alongside playing athletics in college is a lot, and it's a lot to ask, but it's like the best gift ever. We're so lucky that we got to do both at the same time. But yeah, I would say just the adjustment from just like having so much more on your plate, I think it plays the emotional, physical, mental toll right when you get there. And I think every single freshman will experience that at some capacity. But yeah, I think that the culture that we came into and the people that we're surrounded with just immediately like gave me this mindset of like, this is what we're here to do, and we're gonna do it as best as we can, and we're gonna do it with joy, and we're gonna do it with gratefulness. And I think that just like smoothed the transition. It just became like joyful work. It was never like dreadful work.
Well, Kendra, I think of all the positions to play as a freshman, center might be the toughest. And what were the easy things about that transition for you, and what were the tougher things?
Yeah, I would say, again, we were very lucky to come into a team, into a culture that was so accepting and always wanted the opinions of the new people on the team. So in that sense, it was really a blessing to feel like I can speak up and be able to talk to everybody else on my team. But at the same time, as a setter, it's kind of your job to run the court. And when you're out there trying to run the court, when you are playing with 23-year-olds and people who have been on the team for 4 or 5 years, there's definitely some like not wanting to step on toes, but still like just figuring out that balance of talking to people, figuring out what they want, while still just playing with joy and kind of playing free. Because I know personally when I get like tense, is when I don't play my best volleyball. So just kind of being able to lean on the upperclassmen and just kind of talk with them kind of helped me make that adjustment quicker.
Was there a particular upperclassman for either of you that kind of modeled the type of leadership that you wanted to have, or that maybe you wanted to become?
Yeah, Jayla Zimmerman was definitely like my person on the court and off the court. She was such a great role model to me from day one. Like she was one of the ones that was there because I am local. I was able to go early in the summer, my freshman year. And she was like the one that was texting me and like telling me all these things, where to be, when to be there, like how we run things. And I think from that point on, like she was just such a great leader, and not in like a demanding way, but she just like genuinely wanted the best for every single person on our team. And she did it in such a gracious and like kind way, because there's definitely different styles of leadership. And I think that I and a lot of people on our team responded really well to her leadership. And I just will forever be grateful that she was an upperclassman when we came in. And then she also got a COVID year. Yeah, she got a COVID year. So we got to be with her for 2 years.
Yeah, she was an exceptional player.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
Kendra, how about you? Who'd you look to?
Yeah, I would definitely say like Jayla took that role and she was really our team captain for both years. Even her her 5th year when she wasn't on the court, she still took such a major role on the team of developing and helping everybody kind of off the court. But then also, we had so many leaders that year also with like, I remember Naomi Hickman was a 5th year my freshman year, and she led differently. She was a lot quieter, but she also cared for everybody so much and so deeply that like you always felt so supported. And I know like on the court, no matter what was happening, she like loved us so well, that like I felt like that really made a lasting impact as well.
Yeah. Nora, when did it first occur to you that you might have the opportunity and interest to play professional volleyball?
I don't know. I mean, it was kind of always just like, or I never thought about it honestly before college. But kind of getting into college, and I definitely, it was like on my radar, but I also am such a homebody that I like the thing overseas for like 7, 8, 9 months was like, it just would be so much different. And I didn't think that I honestly would enjoy it as much as I enjoyed college ball and all these things. So immediately when like PVF came out and LVB started talking and all these leagues that are in the US, like that's when I knew that I wanted to pursue it and actually do it, because when it was only overseas or nothing, I definitely was like hesitant and didn't want to like fully commit to it because I didn't know what that was going to look like for me.
Right. Kendra, when did it become a real
Yeah.
option for you?
Yeah, I was a little bit late. I was in the same boat of as Nora of like I didn't really overseas kind of scared me. I didn't really know if that was something I really wanted to pursue. But then kind of same thing when the leagues came out in America and this opportunity arose, I kind of started thinking about it. But I was honestly more on the track of I wanted to finish school and get that done. And so honestly, I it wasn't until like the beginning of this school year that I really was like starting in with our senior year and being like, I don't want to be done. Like, I love this sport way too much. And I was like, I want to pursue every opportunity I have to continue to play this sport I love. So it was kind of as this season was developing, I was really kind of ramping up and trying to see what opportunities were out there for me.
Before the season began and you're in preseason, you return a lot of players and you have two really good transfers come in, a libero and a middle blocker who'd already played in a Final Four. How did the coaching staff approach what your goals were for this past season? What were the team's goals?
Yeah, I can tell you it was even last, so we were fortunate enough to have all but two players on the team last spring or the spring before the season. And so at that point we were still kind of fresh off of a loss in the Sweet 16. And so we came into that spring saying, we're gonna go farther than Creighton ever has. Like that was just kind of our mindset of what do we need to start doing this spring? How are we gonna start training to reach that next level to be able to compete with any team in the nation? And that was kind of our mindset from day one, getting back into the gym.
So, but teams don't get better just by saying that. So what did you have to get better in? What was individually, what is a goal that you had to get better at?
I think mine was I talked a lot to the coaches about like hitting efficiency, because like I think in years past, like maybe like me and Ava Martin, it would seem like the number like I would have a lot of kills, but I was also getting set a lot of balls. And so this year, I think a big theme of ours was like more parity and higher hitting efficiency. I think those two things go hand in hand. Like if you have hitters that can put the ball down anywhere on the court, then I mean, I think that leads to every single hitter having higher hitting efficiency. And I think that's something that we really did lock into once we kind of put the pieces together and found that we had weapons all over the court. And so that, for one thing, for me was having higher hitting efficiency, and especially out of system. I felt like in years past didn't necessarily put the ball down at a high rate out of system. So that was a big key for me and something that I felt like I needed to get better at to contribute to the team, just because at this level, so much of the game is played out of system.
Well, for people that aren't familiar with Creighton, you were second in the country in hitting percentage, 324, second only to Pittsburgh, who was in the low 330s. You were first in the country in opponent hitting percentage. That's very rare to have a team in the top two in both of those categories. So obviously the conversation about hitting efficiency was there. But I think, Norah, when I went back and looked through your stats, you've been close to a 300 hitter every year. You were 304 this year, but I think even your freshman season, you hit for a pretty good percentage. Kendra, what was your challenge? What did you need to get better at for this team to compete for a great season?
Yeah, I think I honestly kind of wanted to upgrade every aspect to some degree, every kind of contact, every skill. But I really leaned into kind of what Nora mentioned about the parity is how can I get these connections with all of my hitters to where it doesn't matter what the score is, what situation we're in, every hitter is ready for the ball, that I have trust in them, that they have trust in me, and kind of building that up, so that we could go out there and be more efficient. And then I think something we locked into as a team, you were talking about our opponent hitting percentage being so low, is just our grittiness, whether that be our blockers, our defenders, everybody kind of leaning into honestly just not letting that ball hit the floor, in every aspect of the game.
Yeah, Kendra, I don't know whether you can pass a volleyball or not, but you certainly can play
She
defense
can.
strong enough
She can.
to be a libero at a very high level. And as you know, liberos need to set the ball as well. But yeah, you had a really good player at every position. Your libero that came in from Penn State, I believe she just joined the Orlando franchise, didn't she, Norah?
Yeah, she did.
Yeah, I couldn't believe she wasn't drafted. I thought she was we're talking about Maddie Bilanovic. Is that how you say it? Yeah,
Mhm.
I thought a great player. Both your middles, Elise came over from Kentucky, and your other middle had been there for several years, Kiera. She had a really big match in the NCAA tournament. Your right side player, Johnson, she was really maybe the least experienced player on the court, and yet she hit over 300 and had some very big matches when teams decided to commit on the left side. So it's very unusual to have that. You also ran what I thought was the best system in the country. You had, because both Norah and Ava were 6 rotation outside hitters, you always had 4 attackers in every rotation, and probably attacked more efficiently out of the back row than any other team in the country. Maybe the only other team that approached that would have been Pittsburgh, but primarily they were using one attacker. The right side player was National Player of the Year, but your team was using both left side players out of the back row. Kendra, how do you make a decision when you come off the net and you're in 5-1, whether or not you're setting the back row attacker, say you're 10 feet off, 12 feet off, far enough off that you can't set the slide, and you're probably not, so what goes into the decision making on whether or not you set the left side or the back row attacker? And is that decision made before the play even happens, or is it based on you reading the situation?
Yeah, I would say a majority of the time it's just from reading the situation, feeling what time in the point it's at, and kind of what their blockers have been doing. So sometimes we knew their blockers were committing to putting 4 hands up against our outsides. And so at that point, I knew I would establish that BIC more. And then sometimes if it was teams were staying straight up, then I would go front row and let our outsides rip away with a one-on-one there if I could give it to them. And then also just sometimes who has the hot hand, honestly. Different matches, depending on the time. Maybe Nora was having 4 or 5 kills in a row, then I want to keep feeding her, whether that's front row or back row. And same thing with Ava. Again, with having, arguably one of the best outside duos in the nation with them too. It was pretty easy for me to not have to decide too hard and just kind of go with the flow of the match in that point.
Yeah. Well, sometimes, Norah, you're playing middle back on defense, but sometimes that back row attack came up shaded towards zone 1. It wasn't a pipe. Am I accurate?
Yeah, like a C ball.
Yeah. So who
Yes.
determined that? Is that an audible or?
Ooh, it kind of depends on the situation. Sometimes it's like maybe we know that our middle is going to stay up the gut and the right side is going to stay way over on the right side. Then the C ball might be like a good in between, keep the blockers honest. But sometimes it is an audible, like Ava Martin was so good at. If someone digs the ball, Kendra's running forward, Ava Martin would just audible right behind her, and they had that really good connection there. But yeah, just kind of getting in the gaps, like running a pipe right up the middle can be really successful. But if their middle blockers are just staying, or they're getting 4 hands on the ball from one of the other pins helping, then that's a little bit harder to find the court. So kind of getting in those gaps and avoiding the block a little bit. And also middle hitters pull opponents' blockers. Like if Kiara's running straight up the middle and she has a hot hand, like if I'm that middle blocking her, I would stay on her. So if the middle is staying dead center on the other side of the court, then getting in those gaps, they're going to be reaching. We're going to have open hands. We're going to have open court, things like that. So sometimes it is planned out just based on what other routes we're running, but sometimes it is audible. And Kendra, we work a lot of times in practice. We would try to get on the same page. The coaches would kind of be like trying to trick us a little bit, and we'd have to like communicate with each other's brains. And we definitely practice that a little bit, because when you get into a long rally, like you don't have time to stand there and say you're running this, you're running this, you're running this. But you kind of get in the flow of it. You kind of understand people's tendencies. Like Kendra knows that I would prefer to run in front, Ava would prefer to run behind, like things like that. Setters have a lot to think about, and I don't know how they do it.
Well, you did 3 other things that other teams weren't doing that I thought were to your advantage. One, when Kendra dug the ball, when you passed to your middle blocker. And actually, all teams did that prior to the libero. They passed to the middle. And I remember Coach Booth telling me that when you practice that in the spring, you notice that your attack percentage went up significantly by having that ball set, as opposed to a libero coming up and bump setting the ball. And I was really pleased to see that, because anytime a team can innovate. Another thing you did, even when you didn't need to, you would start in different rotations. And so you were comfortable not always starting with Kendra in one. And a lot of teams come out, and because the setter might be smaller or maybe not as big as the right side, we'll start with the setter in one. Now, in your case, Kendra jumps so well, and she's an exceptional blocker, that wouldn't necessarily be a priority. But you could start in any rotation, and Norah and Ava could switch positions. Either one could play H1, the other H2. It just made you really versatile, and it made it difficult for other teams to plan. The third thing that you did is that, and I don't know that this was true with you, Kendra, because you needed to get to right back pretty quick, but some of your servers were capable of serving from any of the backcourt positions. So they could serve from zone 5, they could serve from zone 1. And if you're trying to serve a short serve, say over into 4, inside the 10-foot line, it makes a lot more sense to be coming from zone 1 than from zone 5. It's just easier to do. I don't know why other teams don't do that, but it just strikes me that your coaching staff is more creative and leverages your talent better. So what are the best things about the two I know the best are Kirsten and Angie. What do they do to make this program so good?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
I
kind
would
of. Oh, sorry.
Nope, go for it.
Go ahead. I was just going to say kind of what you were just saying about being innovative. I think this last year, maybe 2 years, I noticed it the most of like like was it this past summer that the Olympics happened? We were watching as a team all the women's games and all the men's games pretty much too. And they were kind of like, why don't we ever take like what the men are doing? Like, why do we always just watch like the women's team? So we kind of were like taking like a lot of our back row routes and just the speed of that and a few other things. How Adam, our coach, was teaching our defenders to dig certain balls. Like a lot of that was taken from the men's game and just different professional teams. So I think they're being very innovative and like ahead of the game in that way. And then also I think something that I've noticed the past 2 years is that it was really like open communication between the players and coaches. Like they're asking us questions as if we know what we're doing, because I think they just they just started to trust us more and trust our opinion. And I mean, there is a certain, like, you do see things differently off the court versus if you're actually in the thick of it playing. So it was a lot more open communication and like, we see this, what do you think? Or like, we see this, what are you seeing? How can we change it? What are you feeling? All this stuff. So I think that really helped us to see new things. And yeah, just like
Well,
throwing new ideas out there, like the middle setting. We tried it in practice and it was like a little rusty at first, but we saw the vision and we saw what it could be. So we just kind of rolled with it and yeah, it ended up being very successful.
yeah, I want to follow up on something you said about digging in the men's game. What did you mean that men were doing that women weren't?
Yeah. I wouldn't say women aren't doing it, but the men definitely do it more. They open hand dig. I get my hand in there. But like Adam, our coach, is really big on that. We called it a lot of people call it a scoopy. Just like people are hitting so much harder and with more range. If we're only able to dig the ball with the perfect platform in front of us, we don't have very much range. So he was kind of challenging us all to dig with one hand, dig with an open hand, just get an arm out there, get under it in any way instead of just like solely relying on our platform right in front of us. And you do see that a lot in the men's game. They just make their hand as big as they can and they get under it somehow. So that was a big key that we really honed into this spring and summer and fall. I think it was really successful, and I think that we can keep. I guess we're not there anymore, but we can keep building on that.
Well, Kendra, I used to say that the most important relationship is between the head coach and the starting setter. Talk about Kirsten and her relationship with you in developing trust with you.
Yeah, I think again, it was a lot of that open communication. Literally every single practice, I would do something, or like she would say, Kendra, try this. And I would look at her and be like, nope, I don't like it. Redo. Like just like a lot of stuff where it was, and again, this was built over 4 years of having these conversations with each other. So again, freshman year, it was a lot more of that, her just telling me what
Directing you.
she's seen, correcting, making those adjustments. But again, as you get to kind of know each other, and we kind of got to know each other's brains and how each other thought, we were really able to come up with some different ideas. And I remember so many different times we would be in meetings together going through all of the different rotations. And it's okay, what can we do in this rotation to give a new look? Like, what route could we run? Do we like the feeling of throwing this person over here, or things like that? Or then it's like, how can we push our game to the next level, as a whole and systematically? And so kind of having those conversations with her was a lot of fun. And yeah, and just being able to, again, try new things. She was always open to, if I wanted to try something new, then she was like, sure, we can go for it. And then we would talk about it, whether it was with the play, like with the outsides, if we were trying to move that back row attack around a lot, and how we wanted to call it, when we wanted to call it, like stuff like that. We had a lot of communication on. And then also just being able to have fun with each other. Like, again, when you have a coach that just cares about you so much, it's a lot easier to have those conversations, because you know nothing said either way is going to be coming from anywhere but love. So yeah.
Yeah. How difficult is it for someone, say like Maddie comes in from an established program, a certain way of doing things, comes into another culture? Obviously, she made the adjustment, otherwise it wouldn't have worked. But is that what goes into that? How do you make somebody like that comfortable? How does she sense what's important?
Yeah, I think it was a major adjustment. She'll say this for sure, that it was a major adjustment coming here. Our culture is a lot different than other places, where we are very bought into one another. We all care about each other so deeply. And sometimes, and I think she helped with this a lot, is we don't really yell at each other. We don't really kind of nip at each other as some programs do in practice. And so I remember the first couple of times with her and Elise both in practice, is they would kind of get on us about a ball dropping, or something would happen, and they'd be like, that can't happen. And I remember, I personally, I think other people on the team did also, of having that shock of like, are they attacking me personally at that point? But then, like, honestly, that was good for us. And I think that's something that we grew from the team, as a team on with that, is like, it's okay to expect a lot from each other and hold each other accountable. And so I think they kind of learned how to go about it. And I think they adjusted the way that sometimes they talked to certain teammates, but then we were still able to go out there and learn from them and be like, okay, we can get after each other a little bit of practice. We can hold ourselves to a higher standard. And honestly, I think that was a huge part in allowing us to be so successful this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nora, a few years from now, if Kirsten or somebody else called you up and said, do you want to be an assistant coach? Is that a possibility? Or have you got to give nursing a go before you consider that?
I always joke that I wouldn't like coaching, because I would just be jealous all the time, and I would want to be the one playing. Just like coaching camps in the summer, I love it so much, but sometimes it's so painful, because I just like watching and not being the one playing is so hard for me. But I do really think that I would enjoy coaching, and just being able to give back and do all these things that every coach that I've ever been coached by has done for me, I think would be really, really cool. And I just want to stay around the sport forever. So that would be
Yeah.
fun, especially if it was at Creighton.
And Kendra, I'm assuming you would definitely want to be a coach.
Yeah, I don't know if I would get into college coaching. I would love it. I think if the opportunity came, I definitely would take it. But I definitely want to coach in some capacity, whether that be at the club level, or just being able to give back, like Norah said, and just giving the knowledge that I have gained through the years, and kind of being able to help and see other people succeed, I think brings so much value into life. So yeah, I will always be around the sport probably as well.
You know, in the regional semifinal at Penn State, Creighton comes out and hits 367 in the first set and loses the set. And some teams might say, I don't know that we can do any better than that. But you did better. You came back and you won the next three sets, beat the defending national champions, the team that was ranked number one at the start of the season. That had to be a high point for both of you, winning that match I thought certainly that you had a very good chance of winning that. I'm sure you did, but to the general public who didn't know Creighton volleyball, that might have been a surprise. What was the feeling after that match, Norah?
Oh my gosh, we were so excited. I mean, I would agree. I think that our whole team thought that, I mean, we knew that if we played like us, that we could win that match, and we were the higher seed, but I think if you ask anyone, they would have had Texas. And I know actually, if you would have asked anyone, they would have had Texas beating us. But I think I talked about this in a different interview once of just like the mindset switch that we had going into that game compared to some of the other top 10 games that we had. Like when we played Nebraska and when we played Louisville in preseason, we definitely were kind of taking like the underdog approach and kind of like, okay, well, like we could, I mean, we have nothing to lose, so like might as well go out and just like go out swinging, go out and get it. And I think that in some capacity that does free you up, but I don't think that that's what worked for our team. And I think we learned a lot from that. And going into the Texas game, we kind of flipped it and we're like, okay, people think that we're the underdog, but like we expect to win this game. We expect to be the better team. We expect to do all these things. And I think that that's the mindset that helped us to win that game. I think that we went out and we, I don't know, I think we were just grittier and we just almost had like more, we like to joke that we played with like swagger and like almost a little bit of just like we expect to win and we know that we can win if we play how we do. So I think that mindset was what helped us to win that game. But yeah, that was so fun and I was so proud of how our team just came out and how we came together. That was definitely one of my top games, my top memories in college volleyball, just winning that game and finally breaking, like we finally got past this point that we had been trying to break through all of our 3 years, and then just years prior to that is really, really special. And to do it with that group was so fun.
It's it's so fragile in so many ways, even the seeding. If Nebraska beats Penn State at Penn State at the end of the season, you may have been a top four seed. If in the tournament, you saw Northern Iowa in position to beat Louisville, missed four serves to win the match. So there's always these ifs about what happens. Did you feel more pressure going into the Penn State match, your final match for the regional championship? Was the atmosphere different, or certainly Penn State has the advantage of playing on their home court?
Yeah, I think we knew going in that there was going to be a large crowd and that it was definitely going to be a lot of people cheering against us. But we also took that going in as we love that. We love we love playing in front of big crowds. We love having that, whether it's for or against us, like just bringing that energy. So I wouldn't say we felt necessarily the pressure of it. I think honestly, we tried to go in with the same mindset. I would tell you, everyone on the team was going in there thinking, we can win this match. We will be winning this match. And again, unfortunately, it didn't go our way. But I think we still went out there and we still fought. And again, you can always go the ifs, ands, buts. We play this differently. We make a change. Maybe it comes out differently. But at the end of the day, I still think we stayed true to ourselves throughout that entire match. And I remember we leaned into who we were, and we talked a lot about throughout that match of continuing to try to play with our swagger, trying to build ourselves up, leaning into each other, like huddles. We always talked about huddles were such a huge thing, to kind of mitigate the crowd when they would get really loud of, okay, we're just going to stay in this huddle and we're going to lean into one another. And I think we did all of those things throughout the match.
Well,
but
you came out,
unfortunately, it just didn't come out our way.
you were actually jumped out to the lead, I believe, in the first four sets. Kind of jumped out ahead, and
Hmm.
it might have been the third set that was the critical set, because I think you might have been even ahead at midpoint. But
Hmm.
it's a funny game, and anything can happen. Um, I don't know that I have enjoyed watching a team as much as I enjoyed watching Creighton volleyball this last year. I either saw your matches live on the streaming, or I would see them later on computer scouting stuff. But it really was a beautiful team in the sense that you played the way I would like to see a team play. You played complementary volleyball. Your offense and your defense were equally good. Your blocking was good. Your passing was good. Setting was good. Your offense was good. So both of you had some limited action this last week, really your first action in pro volleyball. Kendra, I believe you came in with a score maybe 0-7 in the fifth set. That's
Yeah.
Santa Claus would have trouble turning that around, but you played well, and I was glad to see you come in. What did that feel like?
Yeah, I would say definitely the first time pro match nerves were in there a little bit. That was more in the fourth set. But again, you just kind of get out there and you get back to just the competition and just the fun of being on the court. And again, just having a new group of girls, but it's the same thing. You're out there, you're playing for the team. And so I knew that in that moment, our team just needed a spark and they just needed someone to go out there and try to do something different. And so that's what I tried to do. And I just went out there and said, let's just go have fun. And yeah, I mean, it was, again, not quite the outcome that our team wanted, but I think it was a great learning experience and just kind of
You're
getting to
gonna,
see the game at that next level, going against a different opponent, kind of getting all those feelings. It was really fun.
yeah, and you're gonna get more opportunities. There's no question. I was kind of thinking that you could be situationally a front row sub because you're a stronger blocker than Natty, and Natty's such a wonderful player. I can't
Oh, yeah.
imagine be a better setter to learn from than Natalia Valentin. She's as good a professional as it gets. And
Oh,
Norah,
yeah.
you came in the last match and I think had 5 kills and no errors. So I'm hoping Amy saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really fun. Definitely same thing. I definitely had nerves. But it's cool. I think that this team that I'm on now is really leaning into, and the captains on our team kind of talked about it. Like, we think that this team can be really special because we think that we can be really special off the bench, and we kind of are making that part of our identity. Is like any one of us, anyone who's on the bench can come in and be that spark and can help the team rally or can score a point or can get a dig or whatever your role is. We're kind of leaning into that. And I think it's really cool. And it definitely helped calm my nerves of just like kind of taking a step back and being like, okay, I don't have to do anything crazy. Just like, what is my job in this moment? Like, we needed someone to put the ball down. So I just went in and tried to swing as hard as I could. And, but
A lot of
I
times
think
that'll do it.
that it's sometimes. But I think it's cool that that's just something that our team is leaning into and kind of frees us up a little bit instead of trying to be this like perfect, like, oh, I need to do this, I need to do this, but just like, what is my role in this moment coming off the bench and how can I help my team?
Is this jump harder, easier, the same as moving from high school to college?
I don't know. I would say it's just such a different kind
I
of
was going to
jump.
say that too. Yeah.
And I also think, again, part of that is, I think at the college, I would say probably from high school to college, I didn't really play anybody that was of like, there was no first team All American that I played in high school, like at that sense, that like, I would say the skill overall was drastically different between high school and college. Whereas you see some of these star players in the PVF are rookies this year.
Right.
And even same thing with LOVB, where you see some of these college players who are coming off of a great season now going right into their pro careers and having these great pro careers as starts to their pro careers as well. And so I think in a sense, you kind of know the level of players that you're going to be playing against. But at the same time, you're playing against all Americans every single day. Your whole team is made up of all Americans and these high level players. So again, you have to play your best volleyball every single day, and trying to grow. And like you said, Nati has helped me drastically already, and just being able to learn from her and get into her mind, because she's been a pro for so long and has experienced international volleyball and has so many tools and tips and tricks. So I think it's way more of a learning experience from players and kind of reading them and learning more from your teammates, whereas in college it was more still from coaches, and kind of getting the feel of this whole new level, versus now it's like, okay, how do I refine the game just a little bit more so I can continue to get better.
And Nora, I'm going to reframe this for you. I
Mhm.
would think it would be harder to build a culture professionally because these people haven't been together before, a lot of them. I mean, that's pretty much a whole new team. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I would say you're absolutely right. And I think so too. And like that, none of us, pretty much everyone in PVF has like a 1-year contract too, max. So like, it's not like college where you're committed to be there for 4 years and you're going to build it over 4 years and you have consistency. Like I could go to any team I want next year. Kendra could go to any team she wants next year. Like it's just so different in that aspect. But so I think it does take an extra I think it takes an extra effort to like build that culture and really come up with what we want our team identity to be, because it's not like it's been building for like year and year and year and year. Like I would say at Creighton, like we always say, like we were standing on the backs of people who had been there for however long. Like the culture at Creighton just kept building and building and building. And I think at pro level, like depending on how many people you have returning versus how many new people you have, and people that are 40 years old versus people that are straight out of college and all these different things. Like I think that the culture of every team will be slightly, actually probably very different every year. And it's just a different challenge, I think, to kind of figure out what each team wants their culture to be that specific year based on the people that they have. And maybe it will turn into more of a consistent thing and people will stay at teams for more than 1 year. But I think just in these first couple of years where everyone is on a 1 or 2 year contract, it's definitely a different challenge. But I think it's cool. A lot of different people bringing different things, different experiences. It's cool.
Well, sometimes people will ask me, they'll say, how good is this person or that person? How good's Nora? How good's Kendra? You are two players I would have loved to coach. And it goes beyond your athletic ability, your mindset, your personality, your sense of team. So I appreciate what you've done for Creighton. I've enjoyed watching you. I also want to thank HumanX Ventures. Without HumanX support, we couldn't bring you people like Kendra Waite and Norah Sis, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody next time. Thank you, Kendra and Nora.
Thank you so much.
Inside the Coaching Mind is presented by HumanX Ventures and is pleased to be a part of the Learfield Varsity Podcast Network. If you're on Facebook, look for the Inside the Coaching Mind group and join a vibrant discussion of volleyball and leadership. TerryPettit.com is where you'll find Terry's books, writings, and downloads, as well as subscription links for all your podcast apps.